call the Economic Development Commission meeting to order. First thing we need to do is approve the minutes from June 9th, 2016. Does anybody have any changes, comments?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to approve them?
Motion to...
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Mr. Cook?
All right. Town updates first. Lots and lots of things going on. I met with the Silverman Group folks yesterday. The building is down, and I had a tour of the site there. I mean, it's even if you're prepared for it, you're not prepared for it. Looking at a site like that, that building was massive, and all you have now is an absolutely beautiful view of the mountain. It's just a stunning location. They're in the process of sorting out, they've got trucks with huge magnets that are sorting out the metal for scrap and separating things into those things that are recyclable, those things that can be used for a road. But they will, it probably means, it sure looks like there will be in fact an impact on the grand list of October 1st, and that's certainly what they were driving for. Now the good news, and I think I told you guys this along the way, is that they are also, this ownership does not like the idea of this money just sitting there, so they are very actively finalizing proposals to the zoning commission on planning. It's going to be mixed use. It's going to focus, I think the first part is going to focus on the north side of the property. But they've been working with Gateway, which was, of course, the organization involved in the charrette. That's a positive note. They've been working, I think, pretty closely with Jamie Rabbit, too, getting a lot of feedback from our town planner on what will or will not work. So there are bound to be areas of tension, but on balance, this has been a very productive process. We got them involved early with the Water Pollution Control Authority. As we all have heard, one of the challenges we've had is getting sewer allocations for new developers. 3 or 4 years ago, that was unfortunately more of an afterthought than something that was addressed right up front, but that's been fixed. So I think that's a positive development. We've been working very closely with the Tariffville Water District folks to get they're replacing the water tank, and in order to make that go smoothly, they've worked very closely with the Board of Selectmen and town staff and Bob DiCrescenzo. The Board of Selectmen approved the final easements they need for that to move forward with that on Monday, so that's in good shape. I have here only one copy, but something that I can certainly distribute to you guys if this is of interest. We have we received a communication from Corny Hendrickson of CERC. CERC runs an Economic Development 101 program, which might be of interest to all of us to see. Again, as we get to the Fairweather report, one of the things that they talked about for the Economic Development Commission was reaching out to other regional entities to see whether there were any synergies there. This might not be a bad way to start, but according to their flyer, at any rate, they help with research, marketing, commercial real estate, business retention and recruitment, all the things you want to talk about. So probably, let me do this, I'll get this to Chris Barnett. And Chris, if you take a look at it, and if you think it's worthy, we can distribute it. The business visitations, I think it's fair to say, have been very active. The first selectman has, and I know that Sarah's been involved in a number of these meetings, not necessarily all of them, and she does some on her own too. But the first selectman met recently with Mark Greenberg. As you know, we were trying to convince Pura that we ought to keep the last Eversource staging area here in Simsbury. Well, Pura decided finally that they were going to let Eversource move away. But I think Mr. Greenberg appreciated the fact that we towed the line in that for him. So there is regular communication with him on how his project's moving, and he knows where the resources are if he needs them. First Selectman also met with Mira Viswanathan, who's the new head for Ethel Walker School, and it seems that this new administration is interested in collaborating more with the town on different things.
Well, that's fascinating. You think they may make a donation like Westminster School?
You led right to the big one. I don't know about that, but it may not. At least the door may be open to
She's
discussion.
squeezing into it, Dave. She's starting the relationship.
Hey, we've been talking about this
For a long time. I
a
know.
long time. I mean, this is ludicrous what's going on when you compare them with the other private schools in town, Plus the fact we gave them all the money, as you know, and I hope they put that on the record. I think this is absolutely ludicrous. A letter from the first selectwoman would really help.
Well, I think we're going to try to, instead of looking over our shoulders at the past, we're going to just try to build a good relationship with the new administration, and we'll see. I think, our staff was very helpful to them in this renovation project they did. It's far more than a renovation project. If you guys have been over to Ethel Walker and seen what they did with that sports complex, it's really very impressive.
My understanding, Tom, is that that's like a $50 million deal that they put in there. It's humongous.
I don't know the exact number, but I'd be surprised if it was far off that.
Yeah, I know it's on that.
Then, let's see, Lisa's been visiting with businesses in West Simsbury. She and staff recently met with Mike Delahanty to discuss some of the challenges that our ambulance EMS services are facing. One issue we are facing is increasing demand for not only emergency services, but there's been a real impact on our dispatch function. We have when there aren't enough ambulances out there, and you've got an emergency medical situation on your hand. These dispatchers have to counsel people through the current situation at the same time they're trying to find somebody either in Simsbury or Granby, or I think Kent is the other one. So it's getting tricky now. The good news is that this is due to more people in town, but there are challenges there. Lisa also visited with the realtors at Caldwell Banker on July 14th, and she's planning follow-ups to the other real estate groups in town. So I think that covers what's been going on with the outreach side in our office. I think I left you guys each a copy of the First Selectmen's report, and that has some development summaries there. After our last meeting, we do now have the First Selectmen's report posted on the EDC website. We did get the fly-in information out there. We added the fly-in. We added the Simsbury Airport to the transportation page on the website. What else was there, Chris? There was Septemberfest.
Taste.
And Taste.
We put on the Grange Fair and the Hike to the Mic as well.
Right.
Just so you know.
Good. So I think we're trying to keep that page as up to date as possible. Right now, we don't have Stephanie Reif any longer. I did something of a reshuffling of the job duties in the administrative services department. We've got to hire a new deputy director of administrative services. That was Sean Kimball's role before he was promoted to finance director. And that position will be responsible for both some of the website functions that Stephanie was providing, and also quite specifically in the job description supporting our economic development efforts. So that's the news from our office. The Charter Revision Commission at its final meeting and I think we may have met after. I think I may have already reported that they've changed their recommendation from elimination of the EDC, which I think what they intended in all this, based on what I heard at the meetings, was that the EDC role would be created by ordinance. I don't think they ever intended its complete elimination, but it was, I think, rightly pointed out that the notion of taking the Economic Development Commission out of the charter is just carried significant baggage with it. It sent the wrong message. So what they've done is they've amended the charter, and the Board of Selectmen approved this. This will go to referendum in November. They've amended the charter to provide that the Economic Development Commission will be created by ordinance by the Board of Selectmen, and that the Board of Selectmen would have authority to determine the terms of the membership, the goals and objectives of the commission, and the number of members. So that's where that stands.
So it was taken out of the charter?
It's in the charter. If you look in the charter, David, it says Economic Development Commission, and it says there will be established an EDC by ordinance by the Board of Selectmen. So it says exactly what I just said, which is that...
Yeah, my question, though, is that at some point in time, they discussed leaving it formally in the charter, but also having this ad hoc.
There's no ad hoc. Now what the charter says is that there will be an Economic Development Commission.
In the charter?
I'm saying the charter says there will be an Economic Development Commission. It will be created by ordinance. So there's no argument with that. There will be an Economic Development Commission. What it looks like and what it does, though, is more flexible than it was under the old charter.
Right, and the objectives will be determined by the Board of Selectmen as...
This dumbhead, is it going to be in the new charter?
Yes.
It will be written in the new charter. And in addition, then we have this other approach that's going to be used, right?
No. So the current structure of the EDC, which is where the charter determines the membership, it determines the length of terms, it determines...
will not happen.
That's gone. But if you look in the charter, in the draft, it says Economic Development Commission. So it's still in the charter, and the charter requires that the Economic Development Commission be created by ordinance.
But that question is going to referendum.
Correct.
Right, as a separate line item.
The board determines number of members and length, so they get to determine.
Exactly.
Does any other questions work like that? Or will this be the first?
So they have the baby then?
This is the first of all of our appointed boards in the charter. This is the first that works this way.
That would be that.
There's other commissions that are not in the charter
Yeah.
that are done under ordinance.
I don't know if they're
Yes.
done. Which ones are ordinance, Sarah? I think most of them are ad hoc. Something like the Technology Task Force, for example, is not created by ordinance.
I think
Flower
there's
Bridge,
maybe one or
there
two that fall under ordinance.
may very well be. I don't know off the top.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't blank on that as well.
So all of the minutia, if you will, of the charter of the EDC is going to be established after by the Board of Selectmen by ordinance.
That's correct.
How many members, terms, all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of
Should
stuff.
it pass?
If that passes at
Referendum.
referendum.
Exactly.
So they would
Right.
just like discuss it at a meeting and vote on it, and they just write it up in
Well,
a document or something?
Yeah, essentially, that's right. They'd hold it, anytime you pass an ordinance, you hold a public hearing, you get public input on it. But they would likely come up prior to doing that with sort of a template for what they think is a good approach to it.
If, when it goes to the public, which will be in November, if that is voted down, okay, that doesn't affect anything else. I mean, each one of those positions
That's a very
stands
good
on
point,
its own.
David. Let me tell you how it's, to complete the picture, I focused on the EDC piece first. On Monday night, the Board of Selectmen voted to send the 6 of 7 Charter Commission, Revision Commission recommendations to referendum. The first was form of government. A recommendation to move to a town manager, Board of Selectmen form of government. That was voted on, it was a 4-2 vote. 4-2 vote, so that goes. There were, the EDC change was recommended, removal of the Human Rights Commission. That's a commission that's met twice in the last 10 or 15 years. It's just not, it's, those services are provided by...
Human relations.
Yeah. The gender neutrality in the charter is part of it. Expansion of the Open Space Committee is in there, and I'm missing one other important one.
Is it Culture, Parks and Rec?
They chose not to.
That
That was
did not
the
go.
only one that
Right,
didn't pass.
Which one?
They chose not to remove culture.
Right, culture will still be within Culture, Parks and Recreation.
We're gonna keep culture,
I
right?
don't remember the open space one.
That's good.
They're gonna add, they wanna add 2 more members.
They wanna add
Actually, it's
Open it up.
Oh, sorry, 3.
Yeah.
Open up.
Yeah, open it up, try to get a little more expertise on. I think they're looking for unaffiliated folks too. And I am just blanking on what the last one is. It'll come to me.
They
That's
didn't have to
out.
do anything with regard to P&C.
They went back and forth in planning and zoning, and they had a lot of testimony from FERG, from other current participants who were saying that things are working pretty well right now. The boards are working in much better coordination than they have in the past. I think they both boards felt that their responsibilities were dissimilar enough that it made sense to have separate bodies to do that. So that's that.
The final one was make technical changes to the town budget.
Thank you. That was the
appropriations.
last one. That was the last one. So we had, one of the things
The
that's...
notifications.
For clarity, Tom, when this goes with those 6 or 7 items
Right.
on the ballot, if the town manager is approved,
Right.
without assumption, okay, any one of the others could be not approved.
Up or down, yeah.
And it doesn't impact or affect whether
That's
we're going to have a
correct.
different form of government,
So we
right?
could end up with some or all or none of those, but that's...
Everyone is a different line item that we're
Exactly.
voting on.
So they ended up
Because
creating...
that's very important. A lot of people don't understand that.
They created 6 different referendum questions, so that's what they've done.
But each one stands on its own, basically.
Correct.
How do they pass?
All of them passed for 6-0, with the exception of form of government, which passed 4-2.
No, but I mean, when the voting comes, how do the votes go? In other words, is it even, is there a ratio, or is it just, if one more vote says no, then yes, that's it? Or how you know what I mean?
I think there is a minimum voter requirement for this. But if you meet the minimum number of voters, a 1-vote majority will pass it.
Okay, that's my question. Interesting.
That's what I got.
Questions, right? What are you hearing on Dyno Nobel having a big layoff?
We haven't heard anything recently on that. We did hear from them a couple of months ago that was a possibility, that they were working hard to try to avoid it. And it wasn't, it wasn't a we're closing down the facility kind of thing, anything like that. It was definitely a force reduction, and I don't even know if they intended it to be permanent. But I haven't heard anything more recent data.
So they haven't come back to you, right?
Right.
Okay, well, I have no contact with them. However, I have a lot of people I know down there, and it is underway, just for your edification, okay? How big it is, I can't say,
Right.
but it's not 1 or 2, it's more than, it's some substantial number. And what's behind it, as I understand, Dyno Nobel, about 40 or 50% of their business here, give or take, goes into the coal industry. And so this is not a short-term contraction. This is a pretty serious situation for Dyno Nobel. Just so you put that into the equation, okay?
We have been in touch with them, and frankly, Lisa may have more current information than I do on that, but thank you for that.
Well, it has some real impact on the community, that's the
There's no
point.
doubt.
yeah.
Couple questions. When the Silverman Group comes before the land use boards for their project approvals, one of the recommendations of the task force was that those would be held at joint meetings to try to minimize the number of times their attorneys and architects and whatnot need to come in. And certainly, I think it's appropriate that EDC is included in those meetings and want to make sure that.
You'd want to know when they're being held, right?
Well, if they're going to do a joint meeting between Planning, Zoning, Design Review Board, Land Use Boards, Economic Development Commission needs to be included in that.
I mean,
When they're doing their presentation. I mean, if they're doing a presentation to the land use boards, I assume because of the size of the project, they're not going to be going board to board. They're going to be doing.
Yeah, I'll check with Jamie to see
One big
what.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's been a very good relationship. They've been very happy with the process so far. I don't know whether they. I'll talk with Jamie and see what the plans are for that. But
The other comment is, now that these apartments are starting to come online, Highcroft is online, the Garden Homes now has an official website, and they're starting to lease, which is the one down by Avon. I think that getting a quarterly vacancy report, but I'll put my real estate hat on for a moment. A lot of the market data that they've used to determine how many units they're building is older data.
Sure.
And it would be interesting to try to attempt to get vacancy reports from Dorset Crossing, from High Point, to see as other future projects, whether it's the Silverman Group or other projects that are slated to go in the downtown area, so they understand what these vacancy rates are and where the demographics of the people who are coming, or where they're coming from.
is there a member of the board who'd be willing to do that? That'd be great.
Well, I can't do that because I would have a conflict of interest with a particular
I understand.
project,
Yeah.
so I can't do that, but I think I think it would be a good vehicle for the town to really understand, are these being rented? Who are they being rented to? Who's coming to our community, so we can, use that information to help guide these mixed-use developments and what kind of retail, based on the demographics of the people who are starting to come, because a lot of the data that they've based these buildings on is older data.
Sure.
5 to 8 years old.
It'd be great data to have.
Well, I will say though, a lot of them are using what Gristmill was using, which is more current, which is Ron Janesco's stuff, had pulled, some of the most current data, and I think that's what a lot of them, Gerard and others, are basing off of.
I think there's been a shift though in demographics of who's coming to the town in residential purchases, but also I think that it's not a bad way to just kind of check in and see how things are going.
I don't disagree.
Is there anything we can do to help you? Because the more people we get to town, the more our businesses are going to thrive, but we need to understand what the needs are of the people who are coming here.
You make an excellent point, because if you look at what do they call it, garden apartments, the one on the line, the way that project has gone forward is strange, because they've put everything into the ground and they haven't put any sticks up. And usually you don't have such a lag between when you get all the site work done before they start putting up the structures. And the question is, what's behind that? Why is that happening? Is it because they have their own crews that are waiting to come in and put it up? But it just sits there, and it's just been sitting there waiting to put up the sticks for, 6 or 8 weeks. Do you have any input on that?
I don't.
They do have a leasing office on site, and their website did go live this week. So they have pricing, they've got floor plans now, they've got square footage, they've got rental applications, all of that went live.
It's also
this
important
week.
to remember that each project will operate within a different time frame, will operate within its own constraints, will have, not every project works the same way, so while it might seem a little bit...
Sir, I understand all that, but the issue is that this is very strange. We've never had a project come in like that, okay? Nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's a curiosity, which ties in with what Chris is saying, Are they trying to get enough data on when they want to move forward with it? We don't know that, okay? And we don't have to know. It's just very strange what's happening, that's all. So.
Well, I think they
There's
were
a lot
waiting
of
for Pura.
infrastructure that
Well, they were
needs
also
to go.
waiting for some of
It's
the
all
other
in.
issues.
Well, no, I know, it's all in now, but Highcroft did quite a bit of infrastructure work, and those went up very, very quickly, and they've opened their first, they're going into their second building, and those are being leased, and those are high-end
Right.
rental units with amenities versus the pricing, from what I saw for garden homes, seems to be in line with what we were seeing up at East Point in that area.
Yeah.
The head man at Garden Apartments came and spoke to the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Group. A very, very smart guy. He's been 30 years doing this. And he made the point that they have like 40,000 apartments that they've put up in the country. Okay, so they're a big organization.
Well, they've got some at one of our neighbors in Windsor, so they're local. They know the local marketplace.
Yeah, right.
This is Mark.
So it's, the other thing that came of interest was, unlike what I had heard before, they have not put any elevators, as you know, in Dorset Crossing Apartments. And the rumor was that they weren't going to be in, but they are going to put some elevators in down there in the Garden Apartments, which I think our guys on the zoning, on the land use, ought to look at that very hard, because that tends to control pricing in the marketplace. Because, as we all know, putting in elevators is a very expensive deal and developers usually won't put them in unless they feel they have to, you know, but according to this gentleman, they are going to do that, which was different than what we had first heard. So.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
All right, so,
Oh, I'm sorry, I also distributed some other materials for you guys, which is,
some light reading.
a little light reading on fast track and what's going on with that. Metro Hartford progress points, so.
So, at the last EDC meeting, we talked about coming up with some objectives that we want to start working on as a commission going forward, that were in line with some of the recommendations from the task force and the marketing study that was done. I printed out copies of those if anybody needs a copy of them for reference. But you know, one of the things that has come out of the discussions from the potential charter revision with the Board of Selectmen, and was really having the Economic Development Task Force, the Economic Development Commission to have objectives to get some direction from the Board of Selectmen on what the town's needs are, how we can facilitate growth in town instead of being as ambiguous as our objective is to grow the grand list. Well, how do we do that, and what do we want to do? So this is really intended to be a discussion amongst all of us. We're not making final decisions here. We just want to get some ideas of what we think we can be doing, and I want to thank Jay for sending out a recent, it was yesterday, right, that you sent out an article regarding, I believe it's a grant that's available for innovation improvements in Main Street. This might be a great opportunity for Main Street to attract some technology, you know, to the area, and look at if we even qualify for that kind of grant, based on some of it had to do with public transportation and things like that. So, you know, I don't know if we want to go one by one and talk about what our thoughts are, if anybody's got thoughts about what our objectives are, but I think we need to start having a discussion to bring to the Board of Selectmen some of our ideas and get their input so we can make this a more collaborative and more, you know, a working relationship with them. And so, Jay, do you want to start, Jay?
Sure.
We'll start to my left.
Yeah, and go down. Sure. So, you know, I mean, I think that's an excellent idea. So, there's lots that this commission, you know, could do, and kind of sort of does, and you know, so the way this is set up now, right? We're looking to, you know, so assuming this passes, then the Board of Selectmen will be meeting to say, you know, so in addition to how long you have to be serving, it's like how many of you there are going to be and what your objectives are. And I think the last time we talked, we said, well, gee, there's really a bunch of things. And is it best served by one commission, or should there be multiple? kind of, it sounds as though that the way things are set up now, there's going to be one, it will be the EDC. But I don't think that kind of cuts off opportunities to kind of be a little bit more creative with the structure of this commission, other than what we're already doing. I mean, there could be 2 or 3 times the size that we have, and there could be 2 or 3 kind of distinct missions for the Economic Development Commission, with each either committee or segment responsible for a different one. So I mean, I think it's kind of like the big ones are kind of bringing new business into town, and the key to success there, though, is not having the Economic Development Commission or a subcommittee being responsible for that by itself. So let's say the Board of Selectmen says, okay, these are the 3 things that we want the Economic Development Commission to do. One of them is we want them to kind of partner with bringing new business to town. That's fantastic, that's important, but that's only going to work if the commission or the subcommittee is working hand in hand directly with a person in the town whose job it is to bring new business to town. Now, the discussion of that is kind of getting more complicated, right? Because in the past, for the past few years, I've been saying we need to hire a person whose job it is to do just this. Now we have in front of us the fact that the charter could be changing, right? So we may be moving from a first selectman form of government to a town manager. So who in this structure of government, how does that work? Is the town manager going to be responsible for that stuff? Probably not, right? They're really the COO of the town. So who would that be? Would it be, I would imagine this would be some first selectman.
Well, like
actually, is there
who is a
first?
town manager? The economic development function is of Scott Slipka.
Scott Slipka
who is the first selectman or mayor,
Yeah.
He's referred to as mayor in West Hartford, and he is, as I understand it, really kind of
That in West Hartford, the mayor is sort of the face of this, and is
of economic development,
right,
versus the town manager is the day-to-day functioning.
Although there's certainly a lot of the nuts and bolts of the economic development piece do reside with the town manager. But in terms of the outreach, in terms of the person who's downtown at the at meetings where folks are having discussions about siting, that kind of thing, that's where the first selectman probably would continue to play a very important role.
And so I guess, would that be the central role of the first selectman? Is the first selectman going to be kind of the face of the town, leading development, and
if this moves forward and then the form of government is changed, the first selectman's role will continue to be essentially the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and will have still a very, very primary policy role in terms of what goes before the Board of Selectmen and what the town focuses on. So that is without a doubt the primary role. Will continue to play a very important role in serving as a contact for residents on how things are going in town hall. But the economic development piece, some of the same things that a lot of what Lisa's doing now, I think one would expect that the first selectman would continue to do.
In terms of outreach.
Right, yeah. So I mean, I guess the question, so under the new form of government, is the first selectman paid?
The revised charter provides that the Board of Selectmen will establish a stipend for the first selectman. So it's not going to be, I think the intent, as it went through, the first proposal was, the first selectman will receive 15% of whatever the salary is for the town manager. there was concern that that created conflicts of interest, so the next proposal was, well, it was a fixed number of 22,000 or 28,500, I can't remember. State statutes don't allow that to be set by charter, so finally they ended up with recommending that the Board of Selectmen, Board of Selectmen will set the compensation or the stipend. They recommended that it follow something along the magnitude of 15% of what the town manager is contracted for. So it's not a a large salary. It is meant to offset expenses.
Right. So, which kind of begs the question of, depending on what depending on what we want to do for outreach and new business, is that the right person to be doing this? Should there be someone else whose job is to be bringing new business to town? It's difficult to imagine that we're really going to be able to move the needle with a first selectman that is going to be paid a token sum.
Scott Slifka's paid $0, by the way, so he did all of his economic outreach stuff for nothing. So which is terrific. But then now you're kind of hoping we find a Scott, and how many of those are there? I don't want to hitch my wagon to for moving the town forward to finding someone who's going to do all this for nothing. Mm-hmm. You're basically, for someone to do a good job, you're probably looking at a retired executive who, out of the goodness of his or her heart, is going to take on this role. I don't know, that's not really strategy, right? I'm kind of going on a bit here, but all this stuff is kind of intertwined, right? Because it's all interconnected, and I think one of the roles of an economic development commission should be to bring new business into town. We're only going to be effective if what we're doing is supporting the vision articulated by a designated leader to execute on a strategy to go do that. And I guess what I'm struggling with here is we don't have a leader identified either specifically or as a role, because it sure doesn't look like the new first selectman is going to be able to do that any better than the current first selectman is able to do that. And if we don't have that, I think that's the most important thing, but if we don't have a role identified for who's going to be leading the charge, the concern is it's not going to be effective. The economic division will continue to be ineffective in bringing new business to town.
So, I guess the question I have is, if recognizing our limitations with either our current form of government or the potentially new form of government, because the roles are going to be different, okay? So we're asking the Board of Selectmen, and if this passes in the charter revision, kind of a charge for us. Do we need to figure out a way to use our current resources for us to participate more in the process of one of us, a chair or somebody, going to some of these visitations to start to build a bridge between the Economic Development Commission and the first selectman, to assist, so there's a face to this, to give us some more weight, so when they do figure out how to do this, I don't know, because we can't just sit here and and I agree with all your points, is how do we do this? But in the meantime, I think we need to figure out a way to how to do some of this within the structure that we have, and is that just starting to, the Economic Development Commission, as I understand it over the course of history, and part of it is personal history because my husband was on it many years ago, and there's been, and you've been, people have been on this for a long time, on and off, and all of this is, they've been very involved, there's been little involvement, there's been more involvement. Like, how do we get back to the level of being a participant in the process, having projects come back before us as recommended by the task force, how do we have more representation in, the business outreach? How do we do that as a commission?
If I can, one of the things that I think really ought to be a focus is the question of what value you guys can bring to it. I mean, there are a lot of resources working very hard right now doing stuff, and something like, for example, Chris, I think you made an excellent point. Having really good data on what's going on with the various development projects in town in terms of vacancy rates would be a great thing. That's something that's data that I think the Economic Development Commission could pull together, and that would be enormously helpful. And so I think that's part of it. When you talk about bringing new business into town, I agree that that's an important thing to do. The question is, what specifically can the folks on this commission do? What skills can you bring to it? What avenues would you take to do that? Where is the value add there? That's
Well, I guess that, right, and so there's some things are easier to tackle than others, right?
Yep.
So, outreach to existing business, is that something that economic development should,
and I think
should we do? Absolutely. So that's kind of part of it. This is kind of the trickiest piece, and maybe we should have done that last, so we kind of had some wins tally here, but but that's that's the most important, and it's really difficult. Because if the goal is, and what my goal is for what Simsbury should be doing is not kind of on the margins. We should be bringing in at bare minimum hundreds of jobs in. Those jobs should be high-paid jobs that are kind of tech. We should be thinking big here. We should be talking about big commitments to doing big things, to making this tech center, or all the other things we've kind of talked about in the past. And the only way really big initiatives get off the ground is if there is a leader. So without a leader, and someone who can bind the town, we can't bind the town. We're volunteer members of a commission. We can't. I can't go out and meet with companies and say, "Come to Simsbury, and here's what we could do for you." I can't do that.
But if you can, let's go back to West Hartford. They have a mayor, who's been responsible for economic development for a long time, and the town manager. And between the two of them, they got Lubac Square done. That is. So there was leadership there and an elected official who was paid nothing, and the mechanism behind the scenes to get all that done. So I think it's that is still very, very possible here. The question is, from a feet on the ground perspective, where is the value add? For something like the business visitations right now, the way that's working is that usually Sarah and Lisa are visiting with people. Sarah brings with her, an enormous knowledge about what state resources and grants are available. Lisa brings with her essentially the ability to say, okay, here's the town staff you need to work with on anything. So that's the team that needs to be visiting our local businesses right now, because they can provide literally one-click access to the resources people need. So that's something. But there are large areas where additional information, where if we could get data, for example, that where the North End is attracting a lot of young professionals, this economic range, this is perfect for, let's go back to Big Y and say, guys, you're really missing an opportunity here, because you got people who will buy their lunches, breakfasts, and dinners from you. Every single day. So that's the kind of, I think, the folks, we can talk all day long about the larger stuff. The question is, what skills are we, what assets are we bringing to economic development?
For because I just say it like it is. I think we each, as a commission members, need to figure out beyond the 7:30 to 8:30 time frame, okay? what can we individually bring?
That's it.
Okay, to the commission to enhance what we do and move the mission forward as set by the Board of Selectmen and our committee. So what are we each passionate about? What do we have the abilities to do? What are we interested in doing beyond the hour that we meet monthly? And what can we add to enhance the discussions that we have and support the town in finding, helping them find the businesses? Because you're right, Jay. I can't go knocking on a door and say, Urban Outfitters, I'd love you to come to Simsbury because we've got lots of disposable income here, and that doesn't work that way. But if we can help the town, because recognizing short staff, staffing issues and resources, that what talents do we each have that we can bring to the committee to help the town do this? And we each have different things that we can do. I mean, whether it's marketing or, business contacts or, researching an innovation grant or something that we can help with. And I think that's what you're trying to get at.
That's right. And when you don't have to look back very far when you look at, folks on this commission did a whole lot to help us with the website. That hit a lot of skill sets. Thank you, really, for right. So there are that's the value add, and that's otherwise, what you don't want to be is just another commission looking over. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And I think that, and I guess that's what's frustrating to Chris's point, and maybe that's why I'm the only one who's particularly perturbed about this piece is right. Everyone should be. What are you passionate about? Where do you think you could help? And I guess my frustration is this: I brought things to the town. I brought plans that other people had the capital and interest to bring here, and fell completely on deaf ears from the Board of Selectmen, completely. And that was really frustrating for a variety of excuses that was given by those folks. And there's a need, because here's the danger. Here's where I see the danger that we have, is we have very high relative taxes relative to our property values when you compare us to other communities. The cost of living in Simsbury is actually very low. In this part of the state, the cost of living, and to people about cost of living, you can't find a cheaper place to live where you'd actually want to live than where we are right now.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, you got Alabama, but not a lot of people looking to go there. Let's not get. But in places.
To your point, Jay, I've got a young friend of mine who's a musician. He's married to someone who's just started off in the insurance world, and they've got the loveliest little house you could want right by a school. They're going to have the world's greatest education. There are great deals in Simsbury.
Yeah, there are great deals in Simsbury, but here's where, as a town, we're at a competitive disadvantage. The competitive disadvantage is our property taxes relative to other towns. Now, right now, there is a willingness to pay a premium to live in Simsbury. I happily pay that premium to do that. But here's the concern. There's going to come a point in time where the premium is too much, and not enough people will be willing to pay that premium. And what happens is, instead of being proactive to try to do big things to bring employers of high-paying jobs into town and really move the thing, people get reactive. And that means they do any project that comes around. Most of that's retail, because developers like putting that stuff up. Retail's not economic development. I mean, if it's big box, you're talking net losses. So retail is not economic development. Retail fills in places. Retail's quality of life stuff. I'm not saying retail doesn't have a place. It does. We've got a glut of retail space. And my concern is that if we don't do serious things to bring real high-paying jobs into town, people are going to find the property tax levels too high. There's going to be a bunch of reactive stuff, and we're going to put up more apartments, and we're going to put up more retail, and we're going to be reacting, and what everyone talks about as being so important, the character of the town, gradually gets eroded away. The top schools that we have gradually get eroded away because we're not being proactive in bringing the right type of business here. I don't think it's going to happen, next year, but long term, this is what we need to be worried about as a community.
But that goes back to the studies that were done as well. So the studies identified some areas where...
Just a couple of things. The first thing is, I agree with you, Jay, but I'll say this. Very quietly, and a lot of times we can't share this information yet, very quietly, a team of us, led by the First Selectman's office, with town staff and myself, have been working on certain things. I would love to speak with you offline, because we've been working on the marketing study, and the marketing study results since Main Street and the EDC commissioned it years ago. One of the things that we are working on, which again, I'll go offline because this is a public meeting, but is a very large innovation potential, okay? And we have been working on that, and it's been very quiet, and we've been doing it for about 8 months. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I will say that there are limitations to town meetings in which some of this, we're working on several very large projects right now. One is in the center of town, and then that I'll hopefully be able to bring to this commission and tell you guys about in September, but I can't do yet. And the second is we've been working on with Tom Cook and Jamie and Jeff and Tom Roy and the First Selectman, Lisa Hebner, is focused on innovation and the marketing study and everything that you're talking about, and is much larger, but it does take some time. We're getting our pieces together, and so I didn't know that, I didn't know, I guess you mentioned you talked to the Board of Selectmen, we didn't really know about this, but I'd love to meet, because this is something we're actively pursuing.
So maybe
there's a lot of
that's a
stuff
good
we can't-
opportunity, because you're very passionate about
Yes.
the innovation piece of it, to have some...
But I did want to mention, a lot of the stuff there is a face, we are working, and part of the reason that Lisa and I are also meeting with businesses is, yes, the town has spent a ton of money, and you know this, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get new businesses in, and I'm not saying to discount it, I know it's important, but we've met with high-tech manufacturing businesses within Simsbury. That was a priority. That's what we started off doing. Who else do you work with? How else can we help you? Who else can you, to look at high-paying jobs, to look at that industry, to look at growing it.
Getting the critical mass.
Absolutely. So, it is being done, but we can't market that in a town meeting. You know what I'm saying? I can't say, this is what we've done, and this is what we've done, and this is who we've met with in a public setting, but it absolutely is getting done. And
But see,
I'd love to catch you more.
But this is a good example of, here we've got the commission, okay? And then we've got the town doing stuff, and Main Street's doing stuff, and there needs to be more collaboration. If we're going to be effective, we need to be able to participate, maybe not in a public meeting, because I understand the confidentiality, but if we don't know that stuff is going on, we can't be brought in to fold on it and help, because we don't know what we're helping
Exactly,
with.
yeah.
Okay? So it's got to be a two-way conversation.
Right.
And if the Board of Selectmen is committed to keeping the Economic Development Commission in the charter and wants to make it a more robust, effective commission, which is what we want to do as well, we have to be brought into the fold to help. Okay, and
So part
how
of that
can we
is
do
knowing
that?
where you
Where
guys
to help,
can help.
and
Right, and so if we have a better sense for what you guys feel you can offer, then that makes that conversation easier.
So do we need, because many of us are appointed to these commissions by town committees that do or don't necessarily know what our skill sets may or may not be, because we could be appointed for various reasons and not necessarily because we've got a particular skill set. So is it, does the Board of Selectmen need from us, this is what I do, okay?
I think the word you're looking for is leadership. And we need leadership, and hopefully that's what this new charter is going to bring forth for us, to help drive this thing. Without leadership, we go around and around. We've been going around now for about 3 or 4 or 5 years. And we're gonna go around until we get some leadership. We cannot give the leadership to the town. We can tell them what we can do to help it, but we're not gonna supply it, so.
But right, maybe it is if we need to, and I don't know, if we're going to be more collaborative, okay, and be more effective and assist the Board of Selectmen after they give us our mission and all of this, do they need to know what each of us are capable and want to do to move this forward? Because
That would be very helpful, I think, isn't it? It's a sort of an inventory, yeah.
because they can't possibly know what each of our backgrounds are
Exactly.
and what we're interested in participating in without asking the question. So maybe because we haven't been asked, we need to be proactive and provide it to them. Carolyn?
Yeah, question. There was a town branding work being done. Is that true with Jeff? I guess I would be involved. I would like to know more about that because that's really my forte.
You will. Here's the problem. There's been so much turnover between Hiram and Nancy leaving and, oh my gosh, forgive me, the finance,
Joe Mancini?
Joe leaving. We had, through the task force, they'd appropriated just under $16,000 to do the branding. But unfortunately, although we had been assured that it would carry over one more year, it hadn't. So it is on hold because the town is looking for funds to either do it from...
That's not my understanding. I thought you guys were going...
No, remember we talked because
Yeah, our talk was
Sean...
it. Okay, well...
Okay. We had been told, I'd been told by at least by Sean, because you had been out, remember? I'd been told by Sean that they didn't have the money carried over, so
Well, that's
that
true.
we were gonna find money either in last year's surplus or try to find it in this year before we could do it. Does that ring a bell? No?
Well,
That's
that's
surprising
there, but
because the
it didn't-
task force was assured that that money was going to be carried forward.
Well,
Yeah, but when Joe let, we
Actually, it
had...
wasn't Joe. When Hiram
Sorry.
left, he did not earmark the money for carrying forward. So that's where we are. But actually, Main Street, and you guys have been told that the money will be there.
Yes, yes.
That we need to move forward. We haven't specifically identified it yet, but the project should not be on hold.
Oh,
Right? I mean, there's no...
okay, I'm sorry, I put it on hold.
All right, let's
unhold
My
it.
apologies, then it's not on hold anymore, we can move forward.
Yeah. When I got appointed to this commission, I guess, the party said, would you do this? And they told me the reason why they wanted me. They actively pursued getting me. I didn't know about it. So I was recruited, I guess. And so I said, great, I have a marketing background, I have the branding, this is what I do. And they said, we really need to do some of these initiatives, and our commission doesn't have a skill set like yours on it. So we want, we really feel that there's a good fit to have your specialty on our commission. So I came on board, and I'm glad I did. I felt like I had, made an impact for that task force project. But now, what I haven't seen lately is the confidence in some of these, maybe developers or teams to come to the EDC and do what they used to do, is present their projects and get our feedback, because I feel like we represent the public and to some, the diverse, we're not, we're volunteers, and we'd be able to help them with their, make sure that their story fits our town story, our brand, and our wants and needs. So I haven't seen that in a while, and I don't know, and because I haven't seen that, I'm like, where do we go from here? Maybe we don't exist, maybe if we cannot provide value, or there's not that confidence that we can from the outside, how do we be effective? How do we make sure that the right people are on this commission that would provide that leadership and that skill set that the town needs? So I don't know if my role on this commission is over, and I don't know what my future, because I don't have a lot of outside time from this meeting time to give to this board, to give to this commission. So to sign up to do work, to do market research and all those things, that wouldn't be me. So it's like, what do you need? What's the qualifications? What's the resume you're looking for to be on this commission. And without the charter being accepted or not accepted, I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse, because we could, they're going to appoint people to this. We may be out of jobs, right? So, so I think they need to, this may be a premature discussion,
What I'd offer up is that we won't know until November what the next world looks like.
Right.
In the meantime,
even if not knowing, whatever happens in November, it doesn't take place for a full year.
Exactly.
So there is
we have a year and a half. Exactly.
Before this would change.
Right, and this
anyway.
you guys are the folks who are here now, and you're very talented people. And the question is, are there ways that we can match up that talent with things that we need to get done? And so, I think having some involvement on the branding might be very helpful.
Ferg had a comment too.
Ferg, I'm sorry, you had a...
Two quick points. Why don't you periodically meet in a non-public setting, the first selectman, so you get a feel for what's going on and you can help with whatever they're working on?
For you, they can't do that as a group.
They can't do that.
Right, because they cannot...
They have to follow the same rules.
They have to notice meetings, right.
Secondly, there is something you can do now. The Planning Commission is working on the plan of development, which they have to do every 10 years. And a very important part of that is the economic development. Every decision by planning and zoning is tied to a specific thing in the plan of development. And you really ought to meet with Bill Rice and read that document and see how you want to change it and what
Okay, well, I'm just going to put it out there. They should be coming to us looking for input, and no one has contacted us. I would be more than happy to contact Bill.
I mean, I wouldn't sit down and wait for them. Be proactive.
I will be proactive, yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's going to take them a year to do it, but that's something you can do right now.
Yeah, and then there are other very easy public things you can be doing. Main Street and the Chamber are working with the First Selectman's office. We're doing things like ribbon cuttings, introducing yourself. I have a lot of business owners that say, I don't know who the Economic Development Commission is, or they don't recognize you're on it, or you're not in their stores, or what have you. So getting out in the public. We're having one on September 14th at 4 p.m. for the new State Farm, which is in the North Village at, I think, 1423.
Leasing used to be, yeah.
Okay. There's a drop-off tailor/dry cleaner that's coming in. We'll be doing some in Stephen Antonio's, the vacant spot in between Maher's Paint and Sunrise. So, things like that. Those are very easy wins, but it gets you out. It gets you into the community. It lets the businesses tell you. They'll tell you, I need this, or this is my first impression, or, this is what that's how you talk to them. It's how you find out what they need. And it would be great to show support by having you publicly there.
Well, I will start, we don't have a chair, okay, so we're just kind of, I will make a commitment as the vice chair, or whatever I am right now, I would like to go on business visitations just to introduce myself. I don't want to participate in conversations that are confidential or anything like that, but I frequent businesses all the time. I don't seem to get out of Simsbury all that much. So
that's something, can you make that offer to the First Selectman? I can't determine that.
Yes,
and
I will
she's
absolutely
also had other
no, I'm
people
saying that. I will make that offer
Yeah.
to Lisa.
We'll let you guys know about ribbon cuttings, because it would be great if you guys were
Right.
visible at those.
But I think, because in light of time, unless Chuck, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. So in light of time, what I think I'd like to propose is that if we can each kind of think about what our skill sets are, what we're interested in doing beyond the hour that we meet, and kind of, we know what your passion is, Jay, about innovation. I completely agree with you. I just don't know enough about it to do it. But what can we each bring to the table with our personal lives, our job constraints, our skill set, all of that? Because I think we need to make that offer to the Board of Selectmen of, here's what you've got, what can we do to help you? Okay, so if you can each, prior to the next meeting, I don't know if we're allowed to do this.
Send information to me.
Send an email to Tom, okay, about what that is.
And actually, you can copy each other too.
As long as there's not a conversation that happens back and forth.
Right, exactly.
Okay, before the next meeting, so they have that, because I think it needs to be a discussion that the Board of Selectmen needs to continue to have, and what our role is with them. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so does anybody have any old or new business?
You're welcome.
Nope. Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Okay, great.
Thank you
Have a
guys
great
very
day.
much.
Thanks for the time.